If you live in Nigeria, chances are that you've seen things like these. It's called open waste burning and it's practiced globally, but a lot more in developing countries like Ghana, Nepal, Nigeria, some parts of India, Brazil, and more.
One of the main reasons why there's so much burning of waste because there's no separation at source, and so nobody can use the waste for anything.
Separation at source is a technique that works. You're simply separating your solid waste produce at your home, office, or the point where you disposed of it according to the composition. You've probably seen these color-coded bins that separate plastic and organic waste or paper and glass. This is that separation at source.
We have a project, it's a solution. So what we are doing is to incorporate informal waste workers to then enforce separation at source.
I got to meet Desmond in New York during the United Nations General Assembly Week, and I met up with the team at the Earthshot Prize. But why is this relevant? 5 people get £1 million each for their ideas that contribute towards a better environment and the world every year. The Earthshot Prize was launched in 2020 by Prince William, and the annual summit is hosted by Bloomberg Philanthropies. Desmond is one of the 3 finalists I spoke with this year, and he talks about how his initiative is helping to clean the air.
My name is Desmond Alugnoa. My organization is called Green Africa Youth Organization, and we have a project, it's a solution, a climate solution called the Zero Waste Model. Basically what the Zero Waste Model does is that we work with local government and municipalities and metropolitan assemblies to help them transition into proper waste management mechanisms.
Your plan to scale is to see air pollution dropping by 70%.
Yes.
What are some of the strategies that you are looking to make that happen?
So right now, one of the main reasons why there's so much burning of waste, both in the communities, on the city, and also at the dump site, is because there's no separation at source. And so nobody can use the waste for anything. So what we are doing is to incorporate informal waste workers, who are like massive numbers of them on the streets of Accra and across Ghana, who also salvage some of this waste as a resource to sell and make money, integrate them to government waste management mechanisms to then enforce separation at source. So with the separation at source, we are able to then convert organics and food waste into compost for farmers, and also be able to recycle the plastics, because at that point it is now clean. So in the end, you are able to then say, yes, we are eliminating open waste burning, because everybody waste become a resource for the community.
So I might understand what separation at source means, but can you just elaborate slightly on what that means?
Yeah, so waste separation at source means that we're supporting communities with different infrastructure to be able to put their waste in different containers. So if you are having plastics, it is in a different container. If you have food waste or organics, it's also in a different container.
So that way it's far easier to be able to sort them out and use them for
exactly that way. It is very easy to now utilize it for something else.
Green Africa Youth Organization is youth-led.
Yes.
How does being youth-led sort of help the idea grow better or just do better? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so as a youth-led gender-balanced organization, what has been one of our very good opportunity is that the energy among young people is so high. And then a lot of young people are very creative and like always ready to work and try to innovate ideas. And because we have a lot of young people from universities, from high school at our disposal and willing to try their hands and dirty their hands, it becomes quite easy for us to get volunteers, and volunteers can actually drive a lot of work. Then apart from that, of course, going into the communities and mobilizing people to take action, it's quite easy because we have the numbers, and the numbers actually speaks volumes.
What do the numbers look like?
So the numbers in the sense that we have eco clubs in universities. So we have over 8,000 young academicians across Africa who are supporting and working with us. And so when we are organizing community cleanups or when we are doing waste composition, we have these people coming out to support us. And the same way in educating households on how to separate their waste from source.
Yeah, and I like that you have this educational approach. What is your approach to public education for these local communities? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so when it comes to public education, we start with movement building. Now, movement building usually involves actually getting partnerships. The private sector, the government, the young people, and of course, mainly women as well. Because these are like people who are constantly in touch with the issues that we are trying to resolve. Now, when we build this movement and we have the numbers of people who actually understand and they become the campaigners. So even if your organization like us, if you're having like 30 employees, that's still not enough. But when you build a movement which now become bigger than just the organization, the movement replicate the work that you are starting to do. And then the other thing is actually getting the materials and standardizing the education strategy that you are giving to communities. For us, what we do is we do the community environmental education, and we set up little committees everywhere on various topics. Now, when we standardize and have a zero waste strategy, which is what we developed, it's a document that we developed on how to campaign and transition. Now, with that document, everybody is able to give the same message. So you don't have contradictions of people, communities saying different things. And then we also have a part of it that is inter-community learning. Like inter-community learning, basically what you're saying is that with Gayo or without Gayo, once the first community get the message, the second community should be able to learn from that, because the message is the same in all directions.
I'd like to circle back on the air pollution aspect of things. If the goal is to reduce air pollution to by 70%, just like we mentioned earlier, how achievable, like how long would it take to achieve something like that?
So in Ghana, air pollution comes from certain really major sectors. One is, of course, the waste.
Yes.
It's the second biggest air pollution sector in the country. The other thing is also vehicular movement and vehicular pollution. And then there's also the forestry, deforestation, and what have you. Now, what we are doing is actually, we have a message, and that campaign message is tackling all these three. Now, the most important aspect of it is that we are also providing alternatives. So, for example, in the waste management sector, not only we are campaigning, but we are doing what? We are creating jobs through the composting, through the recycling, and we are also producing charcoal briquette. That is taking care of the forest depletion, because a lot of people deplete the forest, burn the wood into charcoal, and then use the wood, the charcoal as biofuel to cook. Now, what we are doing is converting hard to degrade agricultural waste into charcoal briquette, which is more, which doesn't produce enough smoke, a lot of smoke, which doesn't pollute the air compared to the normal wood charcoal, but also stops the felling down of trees. So when we have all these pillars meeting up, then it is actually possible that we can actually even achieve this open burning, no open burning, more than maybe 70%, and control air pollution.
In terms of like success now, how would you know you've succeeded? What is the metric that you would say, once we hit this, we know we've succeeded?
Yeah, so in the city of Accra, for example, when we started the Zero Waste Accra project, one thing that we did was to actually go from health facility to health facility, trying to understand what are the numbers that report complications that are related to, for example, air pollution. Because at the time, we had like huge numbers of premature death relating to that. And the government publishes this every now and then. Right now, as we are speaking, the latest figure is that about 28,000 premature deaths can actually be related to the air pollution every year. Now, the second thing was flooding. There was so much flooding in the municipalities and within the city of Accra, actually sometimes leading to very catastrophic ending of people. And so within the operational areas that we have been operating since 2021, there's been significant reduction in the flooding in the municipalities that we work. That's one metric that we are able to tell how much waste has been taken off from the street and from the drainages, and what's the impact in terms of socio-economic figures for something like that. And then the other thing is, of course, the open burning. In 2022, we actually had a massive campaign on our National Independence Day, where everybody, some people didn't even know us, but then the campaign touched them, and then everybody holding placards saying, "Stop air pollution." Now, you have to know that this is a day that everybody across the country is marching in patriotism to our founding fathers who gained independence for us. So for them to be holding this placard, it means the message has reached so many places. Now, stopping burning, whether it is in the farmland or household waste, will then contribute for us to be able to understand that, okay, greater amount of people from this region have stopped open burning. The other metric we are doing is that now we have committees in different sections of the city who are like to report incidences of open burning to the municipal assembly. And we've actually gotten reports that there has been this number of reports in the month, there's been this number of reduction in the month and stuff like that.
What does the future look like for your organization?
Right now, what the future looks like is that we are winning. even though it's at a slow pace, because you have to also understand that all this comes with funding.
Yeah.
You need some financial resources to keep the engine moving. And so I can say we are moving at a slow pace in that regard. But in terms of numbers, who have gotten the message, it's getting really bigger by the day. And then what we are looking at is that already now we've been able to replicate this particular solution to multiple municipalities. Right now, before coming here, we just signed MOU with about 13 municipalities. Now, with these 13 municipalities, we've also signed MOU with a municipality in Kampala, which means it's being replicated in Uganda. It's also being replicated in Botswana.
Yeah.
Now, we are expecting that within the next few years, up to 2030, we would scale this to actually not only municipalities in Ghana, but also countries across Africa. So it's like a self-replicating kind of model, but of course we have to do the hard work of trying to get everybody to understand and investors to also appreciate what the solution is all about.
And the last thing I want to ask is, you mentioned something about how funding is not like is not as much. Let's talk about like the funding you have gotten. Like, how did it start from the beginning to the midpoint and to now? Like, how was funding like for you to be able to at least get the idea running?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we've struggled for a really long time before even being able to implement this idea because, mind you, ideas are not technology. Even some technologies do fail. Yeah. So the beginning, one of our close partners, which is the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Gayo, actually provided the support to pilot. When we piloted, the solution didn't pick up. And then they were like, at least now we know that this way doesn't work. We know that you can now try the other way. And now it worked. And then from there, once in a while, we started getting small funding from different partners along the way until we landed on, for example, the Clean Air Fund, which is one of our current funders. So it's been about trust, putting in trust in an organization that have an idea that you believe is reliable and can work, and also actually being able to promise something that is more sustainable. I think one of the challenges that we've had all this while is more around, you are doing now this scale, but you are not sure about next year and the year after. And so because of that, you are limiting your potential because you don't want to buy it so much and you don't get the funding to continue. It's more about sustainable funding. Then you can be able to be more pragmatic with the approach.
Yeah. I think I want to round off with something like a success story. I know you mentioned reduction in flooding, but is there like any personal success story that you've seen from what you've built?
Personal and success story. One of the main things, and I think I probably will go around this same thing over and over again, is that in I think this was 2013, no, this was 2016 or thereabout, where we had a very severe flooding in Accra, and it actually led to over 70 people dying. This flooding was as a result of the choked drainages, of course. And then it happened that there was a fire outbreak, a fuel station exploded, and what have you. Now, the complications that one little problem can create, you can just imagine this whole thing as a result of waste still being on the street. Since then, we've not recorded such an incident again. I'm not saying we've not recorded flooding in other areas that have actually led to loss of lives, but at this scale, it hasn't happened. And we are hoping that it wouldn't happen again because we are able to significantly reduce the amount of this in India. One of the deadliest waste dumps in the world used to be a place in Ghana, in the city of Accra, called Agbogbloshe. Right now, as we speak, due to so many campaigns that we run together with different partners, the waste dump has ceased to operate. And there's been significant steps trying to make sure that the place is decongested and what have you. Now, these are things that the successes have to be chalked little by little. And then I believe that at a particular point, there's going to be, the end result is going to look really greater because multiple people are now stepping in to do the same kind of work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Okay.
Thank you.